Have you ever heard of a nation protected by angels? Could there be a country that's part of God's grand plan? The Bible often mentions Israel, but what if there's another nation? A place made up of over 7,600 islands, where miracles have been happening from ancient times to today. What if that nation is the Philippines? Why does this country have so many stories of angelic intervention? How has it survived wars, earthquakes, and disasters time and time again? Is there an unseen force guarding it? The truth may surprise you. Angels and nations. The Bible is full of stories about angels guiding and protecting people. But did you know angels are also said to protect entire nations? Take Daniel 10:13, where an angel is held back by a powerful dark force called the Prince of Persia until Archangel Michael steps in to help. This battle wasn't just for a person, it was for the fate of a nation. Daniel 12:1 even refers to Michael as the great prince protecting Israel. So if Israel has a guardian angel, could other nations have one too? The Bible reveals angels as more than just peaceful messengers. They're warriors fighting unseen battles to protect nations. One angel alone wiped out 185,000 Assyrian soldiers to save Israel. 2 Kings 19:35. If one angel can do that, what could a nation with strong faith receive in protection? Signs of angelic intervention. History is full of mysterious events where nations survived against all odds. Israel, 1948. The tiny nation defeated 5 Arab countries, claiming its independence in what many believe was a miraculous victory. Constantinople, 626 AD. During a siege by Persian and Avar forces, visions of angels reportedly appeared, causing the enemies to flee in terror. Poland, 1920. During the Battle of Warsaw, Soviet soldiers claimed to see a giant woman in the sky, which frightened them into retreat. The common thread? Divine intervention in moments of crisis. But what about the Philippines? Consider this. The Philippines is not a stranger to impossible odds. Take the story of General Douglas MacArthur's promise to return to the Philippines during World War II. Despite overwhelming Japanese forces, the liberation of the Philippines happened. Some say the resilience and faith of the Filipino people played a major role in making that happen. And then there's Typhoon Yolanda, Haiyan, in 2013, one of the strongest tropical cyclones ever recorded. Despite the unimaginable destruction and loss, the nation rebuilt itself. The unwavering faith of the Filipino people was clear. From international humanitarian efforts to local churches providing refuge, it was as if a higher power was guiding the nation through recovery. Now let's look at the 3 factors for angelic protection. Unshakable faith. The Philippines is one of the most religious countries in the world, with over 90% of the population identifying as Christian. Faith is embedded in their daily lives, from prayers before meals to massive religious festivals, like the Feast of the Black Nazarene. A divine mission, the Philippines is known for sending missionaries worldwide. Despite being a developing country, its commitment to spreading the gospel is strong. Is that part of a divine mission? Righteousness and repentance. The Bible emphasizes turning away from wickedness and humbling oneself before God. The Philippines, with its rich religious heritage, often sees calls for national prayers and repentance during times of disaster. Could that be why the nation continues to endure and rebuild? But here's the real question. If this divine protection is real, what should the people of the Philippines do to ensure it continues? And what can the rest of the world learn from them? Real-life advice? Keep your faith strong, no matter what comes your way. Work towards righteousness, not just for yourself, but for your community. And never lose hope, even in the darkest times. In the next part, we'll dig deeper into the countless stories of supernatural encounters and angelic interventions within Philippine history. The evidence might just be too powerful to ignore. The Philippines, a small country sitting on the Pacific Ring of Fire, has faced countless disasters, wars, storms, earthquakes, and volcanic eruptions. And yet it stands resilient, as if something beyond the natural world is watching over it. But what if I told you these aren't just stories? What if I told you there's something far more fascinating going on here? In this video essay, we'll explore real-life examples, practical insights, and the incredible possibility of divine intervention throughout Philippine history. The angelic presence during war. Let's start with World War II. Manila was one of the most brutal battlegrounds of the war. Civilians and soldiers were caught in the crossfire, desperately trying to survive. Amidst this chaos, American and Filipino soldiers reported seeing a glowing figure standing tall in the middle of gunfire, like some kind of shield against the brutality. Japanese soldiers were said to be terrified, claiming to see glowing warriors soaring across the sky. Imagine being a soldier witnessing something like that. What would you do? People who survived the bombings said they heard voices guiding them, telling them where to go just seconds before explosions tore through the ground. These stories aren't just about supernatural encounters. They're about hope. They're about finding something to believe in during moments when all hope feels lost. Miracles in the midst of super typhoon. Haiyan now, flash forward to 2013. Super Typhoon Haiyan, one of the most powerful storms ever recorded, rips through the Philippines. It's a nightmare scenario. Howling winds, monstrous waves, entire villages wiped off the map. But even in the heart of this devastation, miraculous stories surfaced. Villages that were predicted to be completely destroyed remained mostly intact. Floodwaters rose so high they should have submerged entire towns. But then, the water suddenly receded. People described seeing glowing figures standing in the storm, almost like guardians fighting against the chaos. Here's something to think about. In times of disaster, panic and fear can easily consume us. But what if having faith, believing in something bigger than ourselves, gives us the courage to endure, to survive? The volcano miracle. 1991, Mount Pinatubo erupts after 600 years of silence. It was set to become one of the worst volcanic disasters in history. The ash cloud alone could have suffocated millions. And then a typhoon hits. But instead of worsening the disaster, the storm cools the lava, reduces its destructive force, and carries the ash cloud away from populated areas. Was it a mere coincidence or something more? Sometimes the right thing happens at the perfect moment. Whether you call it divine intervention or pure luck, the fact is, millions of lives were saved. Angelic sightings during historic moments. During the 1986 EDSA revolution, thousands of Filipinos gathered at Quiapo Church to pray for freedom. Witnesses reported seeing a radiant figure standing on top of the church, glowing with a mysterious, calming light. And then history changed. A dictatorship collapsed without a single drop of bloodshed. These accounts, whether you believe them or not, have something in common. They all center around moments when the Filipino people were at their lowest, when fear, anger, and desperation could have torn them apart. And yet they survived. They moved forward. Is there divine protection over the Philippines? Now think about this. The Philippines has faced disaster after disaster, war after war, and yet it stands. Why? Are these stories just coincidences? Or is there something much more profound at work here? Even if you don't believe in angels or divine protection, there's something powerful about these stories. They give people hope. They inspire resilience. And most importantly, they make you wonder, is the Philippines truly being protected by something greater? Or is it simply the unbreakable spirit of the Filipino people that keeps them standing, no matter what comes their way? Whatever the answer, one thing's for sure. The story of the Philippines is far from over. Miracles and divine protection in the Philippines. The Philippines has faced some of the most devastating natural disasters in history, but time and time again, stories emerge that suggest something beyond mere coincidence is at play. Today, we're diving into these stories to explore whether miracles and divine protection are truly at work in this nation, and more importantly, how we can find hope, faith, and resilience in the face of overwhelming adversity. Typhoon Haiyan, Yolanda. 2013. One of the most powerful storms ever recorded, Typhoon Haiyan tore through the Philippines with winds reaching 195 miles per hour, 315 kilometers per hour. Imagine entire cities flattened, with waves over 16 feet, 5 meters, high, swallowing entire communities. Over 6,300 lives were lost. But here's where things get interesting. Some areas that should have been completely wiped out remain standing. Survivors trapped in raging floodwaters reported seeing glowing figures moments before they were miraculously rescued. A group of children praying inside a church emerged to find everything around them destroyed. but the church itself was untouched. So what do we make of this? Whether you believe in divine intervention or not, these stories gave hope to people who had nothing else to hold on to. And sometimes hope is the most powerful force of all. The Baguio Miracle, 1990. On July 16, 1990, a 7.8 magnitude earthquake devastated northern Philippines, killing over 2,400 people. Buildings that should have crumbled into dust remained standing against all odds. At a destroyed school, 7 students survived 5 days buried under rubble. Their testimony? Glowing figures stayed beside them the entire time, providing comfort and strength. Even more mysteriously, a church in Baguio was left standing, surrounded by destruction on all sides. Now let's think about this. When everything else falls apart, why do some structures, some lives remain standing? Is it divine protection? Or maybe there's something about faith itself that strengthens the foundation of what we build. Mount Pinatubo eruption, 1991. One of the most powerful volcanic eruptions of the 20th century. It was a disaster waiting to claim hundreds of thousands of lives. But as the eruption began, a massive typhoon swept through the area, pushing deadly ash clouds away from populated regions and cooling lava flows that could have burned entire cities to the ground. Was this a miraculous coincidence or a direct intervention by something beyond our understanding? Regardless of what you believe, the fact remains. Something extraordinary happened that day, sparing the Philippines from unimaginable devastation. And it begs the question, why? Typhoons that change their paths. Time and time again, powerful storms predicted to cause catastrophic damage either weaken or veer off course before hitting the Philippines. In 2018, Typhoon Mangkhut was expected to be catastrophic, but weakened right before landfall. In 2009, Typhoon Parma was supposed to hit Manila directly, but turned away at the last moment. Even Typhoon Kamori in 2019, though it struck smaller islands, weakened significantly before reaching the mainland. Are these coincidences, or is there something more going on? And if there is, what does it say about the resilience and faith of this nation? Mysterious figures in times of crisis. Over the years, countless stories have emerged of mysterious, glowing figures appearing during moments of absolute desperation. A survivor of Typhoon Haiyan spoke of a radiant being guiding him out of the wreckage. In 2009, a woman pulled from floodwaters claimed she felt an invisible hand lifting her to safety. Firefighters escaping a collapsing building reported seeing a glowing figure just before they found their way out. Now, whether you believe in angels or not, these stories speak to something deeper. The will to survive, the power of faith, and the possibility of miracles when all seems lost. Divine mission for the Philippines? The Philippines is one of the largest Christian nations in the world, with over 90% of its population identifying as Christians. This faith has not only endured, but grown stronger despite being surrounded by nations of differing beliefs. More than that, the Philippines has become the top missionary-sending country in Asia, spreading the message of Christianity throughout China, Japan, Korea, India, and the Middle East. Maybe all these stories, these miraculous events, are part of something bigger. Perhaps the Philippines has a divine mission to fulfill, a calling that requires strength, resilience, and faith. Whether you believe in angels or divine intervention, or simply in the power of hope and unity, the stories from this nation are undeniable. These tales of survival and protection continue to surface, and with each new disaster, more stories emerge. So we have to ask ourselves, are these just coincidences, or is there something truly extraordinary at work here? Have you ever wondered if the Philippines has a special purpose in God's plan? Some believe this nation is more than just another country. It could be a spiritual torch for the world. A hidden act of kindness. During one of the darkest times in history, World War II, when millions of Jews were being hunted by Nazi Germany, almost no country was willing to accept them. But in 1939, the Philippines did something remarkable. Under the leadership of President Manuel Quezon, the country opened its doors to Jewish refugees, saving over 1,200 lives. This act of compassion and bravery is seen by many as a fulfillment of Genesis 12:3. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse. Was the Philippines blessed for blessing God's people? Now think about this. A small, developing country, already struggling with its own issues, decides to take in people who the rest of the world rejected. What kind of nation does that? A nation with a heart and possibly a mission. A nation of faith. The Philippines remains one of the strongest Christian countries in the world. Despite natural disasters, poverty, and political turmoil, the faith of the people continues to grow. Churches are expanding, missionaries are being sent all over the world, and communities are standing strong even as faith dwindles in many other countries. It's as if the Philippines has been spiritually fortified for a greater purpose. You see it every day. People praying together during crises, resilience in the face of typhoons, and faith that never wavers even in the midst of political instability. It's not just about religion, it's about a powerful, unwavering connection to God. Could this be a sign that the Philippines is being prepared for something greater? Chosen for a mission? Could the Philippines be chosen by God to play a key role in the end times? The Bible says in Matthew 24:14, "And this gospel of the kingdom will be preached in the whole world as a testimony to all nations, and then the end will come." Interestingly, the Philippines is one of the most active missionary-sending nations, especially to hard-to-reach places like the Middle East. This is not just theory, it's happening. Filipino missionaries are going to places where preaching the gospel is life-threatening. They're reaching areas in the Middle East, North Africa, and even underground churches in China. What drives this passion? Could it be that their purpose goes beyond their own nation's borders? Battling against darkness. But if the Philippines is truly chosen, why does it face so many hardships? Natural disasters, secularism, and anti-Christian ideologies are all creeping into society. Some believe this could be part of a larger spiritual battle. Ephesians 6:12 reminds us, "For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world." Think about the devastating typhoons, earthquakes, and volcanic eruptions. Think about the creeping influence of secularism, corruption, and social issues. It almost feels like something is trying to undermine the nation's faith. Could it be that these are not just natural or political problems, but spiritual attacks meant to weaken the Philippines' role in God's plan? The light in darkness. While many Western nations are abandoning Christianity, the Philippines remains a bright light of faith. Matthew 5:14 says, "You are the light of the world." A city on a hill cannot be hidden. Could the Philippines be this shining city, prepared to spread the gospel even when the world turns away from God? The fact that the Philippines continues to grow stronger in faith, despite all its challenges, is worth noticing. Imagine a world where faith is dwindling, but the Philippines continues to stand as a beacon. This is not just theory, it's a reality unfolding right now. Trials and preparation. It's said that every nation with a divine mission faces attacks. Israel has faced centuries of persecution. The early church was heavily persecuted. Could it be that the challenges the Philippines faces are signs of a higher calling? A preparation for what's to come? This is where real-life advice comes in. If the Philippines is indeed meant to play a major role, then its people must continue to strengthen their faith, stay united, and keep spreading the gospel. Even when the world seems to be falling apart, their faith must remain unshaken. What's next for the Philippines? Could the Philippines truly be a nation protected by angels and chosen for a special role in God's plan? With its strong faith, missionary zeal, and remarkable history of compassion, it certainly seems possible. But if this is true, what will happen in the coming years? And what must the Philippines do to fulfill its purpose? To fulfill its potential, the Philippines must not only remain steadfast in faith, but also actively work to address societal issues. Corruption, poverty, and moral decay must be confronted. The nation must strive to stay true to its calling and continue to shine its light in a darkening world. Only time will tell, but one thing is certain: the Philippines' unwavering faith could be its greatest strength in a world growing darker by the day. What do you think? Could the Philippines be playing a special role in God's plan for the end times?